Triathlon is a solo sport. It is essentially, even in the closest races, you versus you. While training with others is great, logistically, you're probably going to have to do a fair amount of your training on your own if you want to get all your sessions in. So how do you make the most of your time spent training alone? There is a great advantage to training with others and socializing while training. Your training buddies motivate you, get you going on time, and they'll probably push you to push harder than you've ever gone before. But life is busy and complicated, and it's pretty much impossible to always coordinate your schedule with your training buddies. So invariably, you're going to end up doing some of your training alone. This could become a boring slog, or you can use this time to craft the best training you've ever done. There are some big advantages to training on your own. You don't have to stick to anyone else's schedule. You don't need to plan anything. If a gap opens up in your day, you can just throw on some training clothes and off you go. You can also choose your own route. So you can pick a hillier route if you feel like a hillier route, or a flatter route, or just a really easy route if you're having a bad day. Also on the bike, you're not going to have to worry about waiting for others for their mechanicals, their punctures, their pee stops, I suppose. You could also adapt the planned session if needs be. If you're feeling really good, you can smash it, but if you're feeling bad, you can take it really easy. And perhaps the biggest advantage of training on your own, you can stick to your own zones. You can go your pace, your heart rate, your speed to get what you need out of the session. There are lots of advantages to training with other people, but to get the real quality work in, you're probably best off doing some of your sessions on your own. So, how best to train alone? We've put together a list of tips to help you on your journey. Tip 1, choose your own route. When riding or running solo, you have the freedom to choose the route that suits you. If you need an easy ride, you can do an easy route with great scenery. If you need a harder ride, you can pick something that's a bit more challenging. And if you have specific intervals to do, you can make sure you head somewhere safe where you can do them effectively. Or you could just explore new routes and make it up as you go. You don't have to worry about ruining anyone else's day with your poor sense of direction. I'd only do this on an easy ride or run though. You don't want to do a specific session where you have a specific number of miles to cover and then find yourself standing outside your door when you still have a couple more miles left on the clock. That's just going to tempt you to quit early and cut the session short. Next tip, have a plan. Along with having a route plan, you also want to have a session plan before you leave. The I'll just go and see how I feel approach often leads to the I cut it short because I didn't feel great approach. So make sure you have a plan before you go for your distance or your effort or even some intervals. Also, reflect on where this plan fits into your season or your whole program, because if you don't, you might get halfway through the session and feel, I'm just going to cut it short today, I'll do this next week, and then realize that next week's full of plans already and the domino effect for your training program can be pretty severe. The same goes for the swim. If you're going to swim on your own, it is imperative that you have your session printed out before you go. Swimming is really hard to get everything done if you just kind of going with the flow. So make sure you print something out, you can stick it on the side of the pool lane and you can stick to your session. Remember to fuel. When training alone, it's easy to lose track of time and a long time can go by between eating and drinking and suddenly you realize you're really thirsty. You'll be amazed at how the subtle cue of seeing someone else in your training group pick up a water bottle triggers your own thirst response. If you're doing this regularly and making the mistake of not eating or drinking in your rides, set an audible cue on your watch or your phone or your bike computer to remind you to eat and drink so that you can stay fueled up and hydrated in your training. Track your training and progress. Keeping track of your training is important no matter how you train, but it is more important when training alone. Seeing your progress can help boost your motivation and lead to more progress. Conversely, one bad session, not feeling great, and you can convince yourself you've made no progress, which can lead to less progress. Objectively being able to reflect on what you've done in the last week or the last month and how far you've come is invaluable if you spend a lot of your time training on your own. Our next tip is to tune out. Often it pays to tune out of everything in life and all of life's stresses when you're out training, and this is best done when you're on your own. Either you can just turn off the watch and take in the scenic peace of nature, or you can throw in some headphones and put some banging tunes on and just tune out all of life's stresses. Just make sure you do this somewhere safe if you're going to use music in your ears. Tune in. Conversely to the last point, training on your own is a great time to listen to your body. Tune out all the distractions and listen to all those cues your body is giving you. You can practice this with exercises like covering your watch and trying to guess your minute per mile pace, or counting your breaths consciously so that you have to listen to everything that's going on in your body. This is a great skill for racing, and it's really hard to practice when you're in a group. This is also a good time to practice your self-talk or internal dialogue and make sure that you're giving yourself the right cues. Or just run through your whole body and try to consciously ease any tension that might be in your form. This is also an invaluable thing to practice for swimming. Try to consciously feel the pace that you're swimming rather than relying on the pace clock or the feet in front of you, because on race day you might not have those cues, and you're going to need to know what pace you're swimming. Don't procrastinate. One of the dangers of solo training is you have no one waiting for you, so you can just kind of do your session when you get around to it. And this often leads to not doing a session at all. So set a time and prepare and plan. Make sure you have all your kit laid out and it's ready to go so that when it's time to go, you're out the door. Also, don't make a decision not to go training based on how you feel before you get out the door. You're always going to feel a little lousy before you start. Get yourself warmed up, and before you know it, you'll have a great session. Don't make that decision to not do a session before you even try. Our final tip, stay safe when going alone. Tell someone where you're going or what your plans are, or better yet, share a live tracker with them using your Wahoo or your phone. Wear an ID tag, make sure it's visible, because you might have your in case of emergency details on your phone, but your phone battery might die, or in an accident it might be damaged. So make sure you have some form of ID somewhere on you, maybe an ID tag on your helmet strap or your watch strap, or at least an ID in your pocket. And then always carry spares when you're going out on the bike and know how to use them. You can't rely on another cyclist coming or even rely on your phone to phone for help if you have a mechanical, so make sure you're fairly self-sufficient out there when training on your own. Training solo doesn't have to be boring. In fact, it doesn't even have to be less enjoyable. It might actually be the best training you ever do. Just don't become so attached to doing your session perfectly your way that you can't ever train with anyone else. As with everything, it's about finding the balance and the right mix of solo work and social training, and you can have the best of both worlds. If you've liked this video, remember to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to GTN for more videos on triathlon training.